My friend, your brain is the most powerful instrument in your possession. It is the control center of your destiny, the architect of your decisions, and the silent navigator of your future. Yet most people live as prisoners inside their own minds, ruled by fear, doubt, and emotions that were never meant to dominate them. You cannot rise to greatness if your brain remains undisciplined. You have to take control of your mind before it controls you. Your brain is the master key that unlocks every door of your destiny. It determines how far you can see, how much you can believe, and how deeply you can create. Everything you will ever achieve begins as a thought within your mind. The problem is that most people allow their brains to operate on autopilot, repeating the same limited patterns that were shaped by fear, failure, and the opinions of others. They never pause to realize that the mind can be renewed, redirected, and reprogrammed to think at a higher level. You cannot rise above the limitations of your thinking. The quality of your life will always reflect the quality of your thoughts. If you think small, you will live small. If you think in fear, you will act in fear. But when you think with faith, purpose, and confidence, your brain begins to attract the ideas, opportunities, and strength that align with that energy. The mind is like fertile soil. It doesn't care what you plant, it will grow whatever seed you give it. If you plant doubt, you will harvest discouragement. If you plant clarity, you will harvest confidence. The mind obeys the law of focus. What you focus on expands. That's why controlling your brain starts with directing your attention toward what you want, not what you fear. The brain cannot distinguish between imagination and reality. It believes whatever you continually tell it. So when you visualize your success, speak your goals, and affirm your worth, you are programming your brain to produce results that match that image. You are literally teaching your brain how to see your future before it happens. Every thought is a signal, and your brain is a transmitter that aligns your actions and emotions with that signal. There is great power in mental discipline. When your thoughts are scattered, your life becomes unstable. But when your thoughts are focused, your path becomes clear. Discipline trains your brain to stay centered in purpose even when chaos surrounds you. The undisciplined mind is easily manipulated by circumstances, emotions, and external voices. It reacts rather than creates. But a disciplined mind does not react, it responds with intention. It filters distractions, rejects negativity, and holds firm to the vision. That is the difference between those who wander and those who conquer. Your brain must learn who is in charge. You cannot allow your thoughts to drag you backward when your destiny is calling you forward. Controlling your brain also means mastering the dialogue within. The words you speak to yourself every day become instructions to your subconscious mind. If your inner voice constantly criticizes you, your brain will interpret that as truth. But when you start speaking with authority, affirming your value and purpose, the brain begins to align with that command. You were created with the ability to think on purpose, to choose your thoughts rather than letting them choose you. The more intentional you become with your thinking, the more powerful your mind becomes in shaping your reality. Your mind is the gateway to your entire life, and every thought, belief, and influence that enters it begins to shape the way you see yourself and the world around you. The brain does not filter truth from lies, it simply receives information and begins to form patterns from it. That is why guarding the gates of your mind is one of the most vital disciplines you will ever learn. You cannot allow every voice, every image, and every opinion to have access to your inner world. What you permit to enter your mind eventually finds its way into your emotions, your choices, and your destiny. Your thoughts are the architects of your future, and if the wrong materials are used to build them, the entire structure of your life becomes weak. Protecting your mental environment is the foundation of self-mastery and inner peace. Everything around you is competing for your attention. The media, social platforms, conversations, and even the environment you live in all carry messages that influence your mind. Some of those messages are empowering, but most are designed to distract, divide, and drain your focus. When you expose your mind to negativity, fear, and comparison, you slowly begin to absorb them. What you watch becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes how you behave. Guarding the gates of your mind means being selective about what you allow to shape your belief system. It means saying no to toxic information, refusing to dwell on destructive opinions, and filtering what aligns with your purpose from what contaminates your peace. Your mind is sacred territory, and you are its gatekeeper. You must decide what thoughts can enter and what must be turned away. You cannot control every thought that appears, but you can control which ones you entertain. Every thought is like a visitor, some bring peace, others bring confusion. It is your responsibility to recognize who belongs and who doesn't. When a thought of fear comes, confront it with faith. When a thought of doubt enters, challenge it with truth. When the noise of the world tries to invade your clarity, return to silence and reset your focus. Mental boundaries are not about isolation, they are about preservation. You are protecting the power within you from being diluted by the noise around you. What you continually feed your mind becomes the voice that guides your actions. If you want strength, feed your mind with wisdom. If you want peace, feed it with stillness. If you want purpose, feed it with vision. The mind thrives in alignment with what uplifts and expands it. Surround yourself with words, environments, and people that nourish your growth. Eliminate what drains your energy or diminishes your belief. The world will always attempt to plant seeds of fear and limitation, but you have the authority to reject them. Guarding the gates of your mind is not just an act of defense, it is an act of creation, a conscious decision to protect the mental soil where your destiny is taking root. Your brain was never meant to be your master, it was designed to be your servant. It takes instruction, it follows commands, and it obeys the direction you consistently give it. When you do not train your brain to listen to you, it begins to control you through instinct, emotion, and old programming. The untrained mind operates based on habit, not purpose. It repeats familiar patterns because that is what it knows. But when you decide to take authority over your thoughts, when you teach your brain who's in charge, you begin to shift from reaction to intention. You stop being a product of your past and start becoming the designer of your future. Every great transformation begins with the decision to discipline your mind. Training your brain requires consistency. You cannot expect strength without repetition. Just as the body grows stronger through exercise, the mind becomes sharper through daily discipline. Each time you choose focus over distraction, your brain rewires itself. Each time you replace a negative thought with a purposeful one, you are building a new mental pathway. The brain learns. Through repetition, it obeys what you repeatedly expose it to. That is why constant mental conditioning is essential. You must speak to your brain with authority and train it to follow your will, not your weakness. Tell it what to believe, what to ignore, what to pursue. The more you command it, the more it aligns with your direction. Your brain responds to purpose. When you have a clear vision, the brain organizes itself around that goal. It begins to filter information, focus energy, and identify patterns that support what you believe. This is how focus works. It trains your brain to ignore what doesn't matter so it can amplify what does. When you live without purpose, your mind becomes scattered, chasing anything that looks appealing. But when you have clarity, your thoughts move in one direction, creating momentum toward your destiny. A trained mind knows where it is going and refuses to be distracted by noise or negativity. You also must understand that your brain listens to the tone of your emotions. If you constantly speak from fear, it prepares for survival, not success. If you speak from faith, it prepares for opportunity. The brain takes emotional cues and turns them into behavioral habits. When you train your brain, you are teaching it emotional intelligence, to stay calm when pressure rises, to remain confident when uncertainty appears. You are shaping its responses to life instead of letting life dictate its responses to you. That kind of mastery is what separates leaders from followers, creators from complainers, conquerors from victims. Training your brain means you no longer allow every thought to stay. You evaluate it, challenge it, and replace it if it doesn't serve your destiny. You decide what deserves attention and what deserves silence. Over time, your brain learns that you are the commander, not the captive. You begin to live intentionally, think deliberately, and act powerfully, because your brain now understands it was created to follow your purpose, Not your emotions. Emotion is one of the most powerful forces in human life, but it was never designed to lead you. It was meant to serve as an indicator, not a commander. When emotion takes control, wisdom loses direction. Many people make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings, and as a result, they sabotage what they've worked years to build. Controlling your brain requires mastering your emotions, because the mind and emotions are deeply connected. The brain reacts instantly to emotional impulses, sending signals that shape behavior and perception. If you allow those impulses to dominate you, you will find yourself driven by reaction instead of reason. Emotional discipline begins with awareness, the ability to recognize what you feel without allowing it to define what you do. Your emotions are not your enemy, they are messengers. They reveal your inner state and point to what needs attention or healing. But once you identify them, you must choose your response wisely. The difference between maturity and immaturity is the ability to pause before reacting. That pause gives your brain time to move from emotion to logic, from impulse to intention. When you pause, you take back control from the storm. The undisciplined mind reacts to everything it feels, but the trained mind filters emotions through purpose. You do not need to deny how you feel, you simply need to decide which feelings deserve authority. When fear rises, you acknowledge it but refuse to bow to it. When anger surfaces, you see it but refuse to act from it. That is how you take leadership over your inner world. Every emotion carries energy. If directed properly, that energy becomes fuel for growth, but if mismanaged, it becomes fire that burns everything you value. The person who learns to transform emotion into focus becomes unstoppable. Anger can become determination. Fear can become caution and wisdom. Sadness can become compassion. Every feeling can be redirected when the mind is in control. The challenge is that emotions are persuasive, they demand immediate action. But wisdom waits. Wisdom observes. Wisdom speaks last. To master emotion is to practice stillness even when your mind is screaming for movement. It is to train your brain to evaluate before it executes. The calm mind can see what chaos hides. Discipline in emotion also protects your relationships and your peace. Most conflicts, regrets, and broken connections come from unguarded reactions. A few words spoken in anger can destroy years of trust. A moment of panic can erase months of progress. Emotional control keeps you aligned with your higher self instead of your temporary state. It allows you to maintain clarity under pressure and composure in adversity. When others lose their calm, your stillness becomes strength. That kind of mental mastery is not about suppressing emotion, it is about channeling it toward purpose. The more you train your brain to respond with patience and perspective, the less power your emotions have over your decisions. You begin to live guided by wisdom rather than by waves of feeling, and your peace becomes unshakable even in the midst of storms. Your brain is constantly listening, absorbing, and interpreting the messages you feed it. Every word you speak to yourself, every image you dwell on, every thought you entertain becomes an instruction to your subconscious mind. If you repeatedly focus on fear, doubt, or limitation, your brain begins to believe that these are the rules by which your life must operate. But if you intentionally feed it with thoughts of power, possibility, and purpose, it will align itself with success. This is why reprogramming your thoughts daily is not optional, it is essential. Your brain is like a computer, and the programs you run determine your output. Without conscious input, it will continue to execute old scripts that may no longer serve your growth or vision. Reprogramming your mind begins with awareness. You must identify the thoughts that are sabotaging your progress and intentionally replace them with thoughts that elevate your purpose. Negative self-talk, fear of failure, and comparison to others are all forms of mental clutter that cloud your focus. When you challenge these thoughts, question their validity, and replace them with affirmations of strength and clarity, you begin to create new neural pathways. Your brain is plastic, capable of change, and ready to learn. But it requires consistent practice. One affirmation, one positive visualization, or one moment of intentional focus is not enough. Repetition builds strength, and repetition builds belief. Visualization is a powerful tool in daily reprogramming. When you vividly imagine the life you desire, the brain cannot distinguish between imagination and reality. It begins to accept the vision as possible and starts to coordinate your thoughts, emotions, and actions toward achieving it. Daily mental rehearsal programs your brain to act from the perspective of what is possible rather than what is limiting. You begin to see solutions where others see problems, to find opportunity where others see obstacles, and to act with courage where others hesitate. The more detailed and emotional your visualization, the stronger the programming effect becomes. You are literally teaching your brain what success looks like so it can create the necessary pathways to make it happen. Your words also carry immense power. What you speak repeatedly becomes embedded in your subconscious. Speaking of limitation, fear, or failure trains your brain to operate within those boundaries. Speaking of faith, confidence, and victory trains your brain to expand beyond limitation. Every sentence you say to yourself is either building or eroding your inner authority. Daily reprogramming requires deliberate, consistent speech that reinforces your value, your strength, and your vision. You are the author of your internal narrative, and your brain is the publisher that prints what you choose. The mind follows the strongest voice it hears. If the voice of fear dominates, it will guide your life. If the voice of faith dominates, it will steer your life toward opportunity. This is why feeding your brain intentionally is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You must speak with authority, visualize with clarity, and think with purpose. When you do this daily, your brain becomes your most powerful ally, working tirelessly to turn your thoughts into reality, to align your actions with your purpose, and to build the life you have been created to live. Every breakthrough, every achievement, and every moment of true success begins in the mind. The person who masters their thoughts masters their life. Your brain is the command center for every decision, every action, and every outcome you will ever experience. Yet too many people give their power away, allowing circumstances, opinions, and fleeting emotions to dictate their reality. To control your brain is to control your world. When you take authority over your thoughts, you take authority over your destiny. Every external force becomes secondary because your inner world is the one shaping your outer world. Mastering your mind begins with recognizing that you are responsible for what you think. No one else can think for you, and no one else can determine the beliefs you accept. The world will constantly try to influence you with negativity, distraction, and fear. If you do not take control of your mental environment, your brain will absorb those influences without question. Your thoughts become your reality, and when left unchecked, your mind will produce outcomes that reflect confusion rather than clarity, weakness rather than strength. Control begins with conscious attention to what you allow to occupy your mental space. The brain responds to repetition and focus. The thoughts you repeat most frequently are the ones that take root and grow. This is why daily intentional practice is essential. Speak words of power, visualize the life you desire, and consistently remind yourself of your purpose. Each time you do, you strengthen the mental pathways that align with success. The mind is like a muscle, it grows stronger with disciplined exercise. Neglect it, and it weakens. Train it, and it becomes the most powerful tool you have, capable of navigating challenges, creating opportunities, and turning vision into reality. Emotional mastery is an inseparable part of controlling the brain. Your thoughts are always accompanied by feeling, and the brain interprets those emotions as instructions for action. Fear, doubt, and anger will lead your brain toward limitation, but faith, confidence, and determination will guide it toward expansion. Learning to pause, reflect, and redirect emotion allows your brain to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with instinct. This is how you transform challenges into lessons, obstacles into opportunities, and pressure into growth. Emotional control strengthens the brain's ability to follow deliberate commands rather than impulsive desires. Finally, mastery of the brain is mastery of choice. You can choose which thoughts to nurture and which to dismiss. You can choose clarity over confusion, purpose over distraction, and action over hesitation. Every moment presents an opportunity to assert control over your mental environment. The person who commands their thoughts will not be led by circumstance but will lead their circumstances. They will see paths where others see walls, solutions where others see problems, and opportunities where others see obstacles. Control your brain, and you unlock the authority to design your life with intention and power.